Okay, so first thing is tasks. So if you go into Operations City Ledger, and we're going to go into Citrix here, and I go to Invoices, go to Nancy Green here, and you'll see we now have a tasks task tab. So just like the task that we have on reservations, exactly the same. So from the message center, you can also add a task. So it's just a way of adding a task to an invoice. So here I have an old one, so call Vinny. Here I'll do a new task. And all we've done here is, before it used to be just attached to reservation. Now we have a little checkbox, so when we're going to an invoice, it's going to be ticked on invoice, and when you're going to a reservation, obviously a reservation. The invoice ID is going to show. Normally it's the res ID on a reservation. I think here it is the stay dates or something like that, but we did the account that the invoice is on, and then the invoice date, so the date that the invoice was created. So here I'm going to set this for April 6th, follow up, send Vinny to talk to the company. And just like before, you can put to your tasks, or if you have any grouping of people to add the tasks, so you can do here. Okay, I can also set these from the message center itself. So if I go into message center, I do my new entry. So we're going to create as task, and here this is where we would click the invoice. You search for the invoice ID. So very similar, exactly the same as we had for res ID. You would put in the invoice number, click search, and then it'll pull over the name, the account, and the invoice date just for confirmation. Okay, I'm going to cancel that. If I go over to my task now, you'll see that a reservation one, so before this used to say just res ID, so now we have res ID / invoice ID. Whenever it's a res ID that's attached to its R, and whenever it's attached to an invoice, it has an I. And that is creating tasks on invoice. Any questions on that? Okay, perfect. Next is the search by email. So if you go to your search, advanced search, you can now search for reservations by email address. And you don't have to put the full email address in there. You can put the first few characters, and it's going to pull up all the reservations. Obviously, use this email a lot to find reservations. We also did it when you're making a new reservation. On the search here, you can search the profiles by email. If your property is using the force search, that window will also have the email search. And if I go into Operations Guest Profile, and if you're using Guest Search in here, we've added the email. And if you're merging profiles, you can search by email here as well. Okay, any questions on searching by email? Okay, perfect, pretty straightforward. Next one is a restriction on reversals and adjustments on cash type payments. So if I go to System Configuration, Transaction Codes, we're going to go to Payments. Now, under Payments, if I add a new one, there's a trans subgroup called Cash. You'll notice that when I choose the trans subgroup Cash, I get this apply permission 2122 disallow cash reversals and adjustments. If I choose credit cards, check debit, or EMV debit, that is not an option, so it's only applying to the cash. Now, why I chose not to automatically apply the permission 2122 to all cash trend subgroup is for the reason some hotels have, like, wire transfer, where they wouldn't care if the agents were doing adjustments and reversals on that, but we are using the cash trend subgroup, or things like bad debts, right? And usually we're using the cash again. So in this case, to bad debt and wire transfers, we wouldn't want to apply the 2122 permission, disallow cash reversals and adjustments. Maybe we do, but it's not really what it was built for. So if we go to the cash one, or actually I'm going to use my block cached one, you'll see here I have the trend subgroup set as cash, and I have
Still there, Shane?
Yeah. Are you there, Shane?
I think he panicked.
Oh, did Shane just drop off somehow?
I think so. Squirrel.
Let me try calling him, maybe.
Hi, can you guys hear me again?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So,
Can you go back to that cache for the blocked cache?
okay, so because we've chosen the trend subgroup cash, I'm now saying that I am going to apply permission 2122, disallow cash reversals and adjustments to this transaction code. However, that does not automatically mean that everyone will not be able to do reversals, adjustments on that type of payment. You still need to go to clerks and assign that to whichever clerk you want. So in this case, I'm going to go to Roger Wentworth. We'll go to permissions. I may have already given it. Under reservation management, yeah, I already gave it. Disallow cash reversals and adjustments. So automatically it will be on the right-hand side. So when this release goes out, everyone will still be able to do reversals and adjustments. Even if they tick that box, everyone will still be able to do reversals and adjustments until they apply it to the clerk. And then at that point, that clerk can't do the reversals and adjustments on that particular code or codes that you want to do. The idea is as it was explained to me by Susie, it's kind of like the dangling carrot, right? If they have cash in hand, it gives them the opportunity to perhaps skim or steal from the company by doing adjustments or reversals. Even though everything has a paper trail, there could be a chance or a temptation when dealing with cash in hand. So that's why the special disallow adjustment and reversal. So let's go ahead and see it in action.
That's big. No question what you're saying.
Okay, so we should be back in. Are you guys seeing room key again?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So if I go in-house, and here I have a payment block cash, and if I right-click on here, I have the reverse adjustment. If I try to do a reversal, we're going to get the override pop up. So at that point, because I'm Roger Wentworth, I don't have the permission. If I want to reverse this cash, I would have to ask my manager or someone else that has that permission or doesn't have that permission to put in their login so that I'm able to reverse this cash. Same thing if you do an adjustment, you're going to get the override. And if you go to post payment and try to do a negative payment, you're going to get the override as well.
Shane, how come this is only applied to cash and not all payment types?
The idea behind it was having to do with having cash in hand and the temptation of stealing the money. So what would be the use case for not wanting reversals or adjustments on the other ones?
Do they only want maybe someone from accounting or a manager to be able to do reversals on any payments?
Yeah, it's something we can consider for the future. What's that?
No, I'm just saying that I hear that request all the time. That they want to limit.
Yeah, it's something we can certainly consider for the future, and I would suggest putting it on AHA for votes and whatnot. See if we can get some votes behind it. Any other questions? Okay, next is statement notes and invoice notes. So if I go into Operations City Ledger, if I go to reports, we have print statement notes. So this is similar to the print notes in for guest notes and res notes. And essentially what it's going to do is the date range is for when the note was entered. So on a account itself, I can go back and I can see all the notes were entered in for each account from the past month. So the idea being, if you have any notes from the last month that you put in here, so Henry is sending a check for 38 outstanding invoices in February, should arrive early next week. For JTB, Frank Myers will be taking over from Marie in accounting as part of April 15, 2016. So I don't know how useful the statement notes will be, but certainly notes for outstanding invoices may be more useful. So again, if I look at the last month, I can see invoice 1043 under Astra, right? So I have a reminder here. A reminder here that a check should have arrived on the April 1st, and just any other notes from that time. So here, it kind of goes hand in hand with the task. Here, if I saw that check 145496 should be here on Friday, April 1st, maybe I'll set myself a task for April 1st saying, did check 15496 arrive? So you can kind of use the notes and the tasks that you can set now on invoices hand in hand. Any questions on that? Okay, next is the abandonment report. So under reports, reservations, under abandonment reasons, so currently we have the abandonment reasons by booking date. So based on today's date, I can look at all the reservations that were regretted or denied today. So we now have the new report that is by arrival date. And what we're trying to look at is the effect of regretting and denying those reservations that it would have. So if I run this by arrival date, that's really the stay dates of the reservation. For instance, if I look at the month of April, I can see that on the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, I had 5 reservations that were denied because the hotel was sold out. And kind of a good thing to look at, and you'll see we have subtotals. This is very similar to the to the override restrictions report that we put out last release by arrival date. So if we look at the first, second, and third, we can see that we denied 5 reservations because the hotel was sold out. If I go over to the report that we put out last release, the rate restriction, and I also run this by arrival date, I can see that on April 1st, we overrode the length of stay restriction for 4 reservations. So we ended up making 4 bookings as a one-night booking for that day. So what you can start to compare is if our employees are overriding restrictions, we put the restrictions in place for a reason. We wanted a minimum length of stay during that time, but the agent chose to overwrite those. If we look at the other report, the abandonment report, it shows me that after the hotel was sold out, we had another 5 people call that were willing to stay for 3 nights. So it kind of makes us look at, should we be allowing the agents be doing the restriction override, or at least have conversations about that. So using those reports hand in hand can really help you come up with your strategy for future months. Any questions on that? Quiet bunch today. Okay, next is sales manager filtering. So if we go into system configuration clerks, as we know, we can make a salesman or make a clerk a sales manager. And currently in Roomkey, you can attach those to the corporate and wholesale accounts, and then you can run the statistical reports based on those to filter by the sales manager. So we've now added that into groups. So if I go into operations groups, I'm going to create a new group here. If you go to the contact and billing page, here I have the sales manager drop down. So any of the clerks that I checked off as a sales manager will show in this drop down. I can now attach them to the group. And if I go into reports, group revenue summary, so this is the only report that we have the filter on at this point. The first one is summary total, and that's the way the report exists right now. With one addition, we actually added the sales manager column here as well. So even if you don't filter by it, we're still going to show that as a column. So this would be the report that everyone is used to now. And then we've added in the sales manager commission sheet. So this is exactly like the corporate statistics by date range and the wholesale statistics by date range. If I do by commission, it then breaks down Monica's groups that she had during that date range and Sally's during that date range. The first one, I have no one attached, so there's no sales manager on the Landry reunion, so no one's getting credit for that.
Shane, have we looked at the way that these go into the CSV with headers?
We have, yep.
So that has been addressed?
Yep. Oh. Yeah, because I know it's for Henry, right? So he's going to ask for it. Next is the sales manager, and that's just specifically going to one sales manager and only printing theirs out. Okay, any questions on the sales manager filter? Okay, so the next is just a list of tweaks and defects that we put in. The first one, if you recall last release, when making a new reservation for a corporate account, a group account, or a wholesale account, we put in this use address from, so I can have that port right over. we did have Oxford bring up that they don't actually want their agents using this because you know, they really want their agents to get the proper address from the client. So we put in a new permission, and it is a clerk permission only. Under reservation management, and it is 2130, do not show corporate wholesale group address autofill. Okay, next there was an issue in the maintenance module, and I know this happened at Oxford quite a bit, where they were able to create a maintenance request without having a room number attached, and it was showing up on the maintenance report. So the few instances that we got, we fixed, but we also fixed it that this should not happen again in the future. On the property dashboard, there was an issue for the future reservations created. If you clicked on the little blue drop-down, it may have 20 rooms here, but when you click on the drop-down, you may only see 6, and that's because reservations that were made on the GDS were not showing up on here. It was only the ones that were made at the property directly. So that's been rectified. You'll now see reservations created on the GDS as well. Under our system or our reports, statistics, our daily operating report, there was an issue with month to date totals, and I believe the issue it was doubling each day instead of doing counting per day. So that has been rectified as well. One that we already put out in a hot fix, I believe we did it a few weeks ago. It was when you were posting a payment. If they were putting in a reference in here, it wasn't showing up on the folio. What would end up happening is the credit card type was actually going in there. So what we've done is whenever you post this, we're going to show the type of payment, and we're going to keep the reference there that's going in the folio. But again, that was released a few weeks ago, so that is currently in RoomKey. When using Rate Wizard, for properties that have the auto log off feature turned on for 20 minutes, if you're working within the Rate Wizard, because it's a separate window, RoomKey doesn't realize, or Rate Wizard doesn't realize that you're actually in RoomKey. So what was happening, the auto log off was happening when you'd be in the middle of something in Rate Wizard if you were in there for more than 20 minutes, which some people are when they're updating rates. So we fixed that now, that Rate Wizard will realize that it's actually in RoomKey and it won't be counting as long as you're working. Okay, we had another bug where when creating a new reservation, going to a corporate type booking, if I click on the drop-down, we should only be seeing active accounts. What was happening is if they go into the little binoculars, the shortcut into the corporate area, when they came back and clicked on the drop-down, inactive accounts would now be in the drop-down. So going into the module itself was making them show up in the drop-down list. So that has been fixed, will no longer be happening. On ERES, we had a couple of instances of this happening where a reservation was coming through from ERES, a package reservation, and it was actually having 0 adults on it. We don't know how people were able to do this, but we've put in a new validation that they won't be able to do it in the future, because RoomKey and ERES are going to do a check to make sure there's at least 1 adult on there. So however they did it, they shouldn't be able to do it again. We made a small fix over in our transaction codes, when you were doing commission before, if you put 10, it was showing a dollar amount there, even if you had it as a percentage. So now if I'm doing percent, it's going to show as percent, and if I do dollar, it's going to do as dollar. It was actually calculating properly. It was just the display that was looking like it was wrong, so we fixed that. In our BI, I'm not going to go over to BI, but something we did do is we removed, on some of the reports, we put in the dollar symbol. We've actually removed the dollar symbol. We had a complaint from some of our international customers saying that they want their currency figure on there, but instead what we've done is, because we can't do that, we can't put in the currency type, we've just taken out the currency symbol altogether, so everyone will just see it the same. If you see 1,000, that's in your currency, whatever it happens to be. And then for group cutoff, so if I have a cutoff date set in our rate wizard, and the cutoff is here, so say we had set for 30 days. At the point of making the reservation, it was well outside the 30 days, but now we're 5 days out from arrival, so that rate is no longer available for new guests that we're booking. What was happening is if you went to change or modify the reservation to, say, attach a room number or do something like that, it would show up that there was no rate attached when you modified, and the hotel had to end up choosing a manual rate. And as we know, manual rate messes with your statistics and market segmentation and everything good like that. So we made the fix, and it's actually in Roomkey right now. We put it a couple of days ago, that for those instances, when you're modifying a reservation that has a cutoff rate within the cutoff period, it will still display the rate for you. It won't show as no rate. And the last tweak and defect that we did was in the group, on ERES rather, for groups. I believe if they were choosing outside the date range of the group, it looked like there was availability, but if you tried to book, you would just get the spinning wheel forever because you can't actually book for a group outside the dates of the group block. So that has been fixed, so you'll no longer see the availability at all, and thus not get the spinning wheel when you try to book it. And that's it for this release. Do you guys have any questions on anything you've seen today?
Ooh.
Hey, just to confirm, so that permission is only on the clerk?
Which permission?
I'm trying to remember. The permission that you're showing, I'm trying to...
Cash one?
Yeah, the one
the cash
with,
one
yes,
or
the cash one. The cash one.
The cash one is on the agent only. So it's kind of a two-step process to use this. And I admit the design of this, it's a little bit, what's the word I'm looking for? It's a little bit wonky. I know the way that we designed it, but the reason I had it, I mean, we could have just applied it directly to cash. We could have said, let's just make it, let's apply it to all trend subgroup cash. The problem is all those other examples I gave you where it's, you know, wire or bad debts and whatnot, that's why I didn't want to apply it to just every.
No, I understand that, but it only applies to the clerk as opposed to the owner.
Exactly.
Okay.
Well, sorry, it won't apply to anyone, Kimberly, until you give it to them.
Oh, yes, yes,
right?
yes.
Yeah.
But you can't find it in the owner dealio. The owner as opposed to the clerk.
Yeah, it's in both.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I misunderstood. Perfect. Good.
Yeah.
Because I was like, what? Okay, thanks. That's great.
No problem. Okay. Any other questions, guys? I must admit, from this release, compared to last release when I was in the office, I much prefer being in the office with you guys and presenting to see reactions, because I'm back to once again getting no reactions. It's no fun, other than the East Coast sucks, so.
Aww.
Aww. Well, you
All right.
back.
It was enforcement to communicate.
No, I think it looks great, Shane.
There was
Okay.
a lot of stuff in this. I mean, things that people have been waiting for some time. So I hope it's really well received, because it should be.
Yeah, and there was still like hundreds of other support tickets we closed. So if you look at, there's only 14 tweaks and defects I put in. There's hundreds of other support tickets over the past, 10 weeks that have been fixed. We kind of look at the support tickets that affect everyone, where if we made a change that maybe someone else would have seen, but the backdating specifically for transactions of that property, we're not going to put in the release notes. So everything that we fix is not in the release notes. It's a lot of the stuff that we're trying to present to everyone that would affect everyone, right? I forgot to mention, but I think everyone is already aware, the Shift4 i4Go, we are completely switched over to the new i4Go version 2. I'm not sure if CS heard from the few people that didn't switch over, but I believe, Dave, correct me if I'm wrong, I think there's only, 3 that didn't get to us? Maybe 5?
There were 3, and we figure if it becomes an issue because they can't pay, they'll probably call. They made at least 6 efforts to contact the people internally, and then Shift4 did probably about the same number. So we tried real hard.
Exactly. Yeah, so